Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. And joining me, as always, every Wednesday, the one and only Rachel Hopmayer. She is back better than ever. Rachel, how the heck are you doing? We are on the path to divisional round playoffs, Packers 49ers. Take it from there.
It's super exciting. I'm really excited, as I'm sure many Packers fans are, to see a full Lambeau in January. That isn't what we had last year. And I know a lot of the players are pretty pumped too. It really does impact, their mental fortitude on the field. So I'm really excited for Saturday.
It feels like it's all for real. And I've said this before, but I'm hoping this follows the parallel from the Milwaukee Bucks, who, they had the issue in Toronto where they had home field 2 years ago, or I guess 3 years ago, however you want to look at it. And I'm hoping that's the similar as like Green Bay and San Francisco and hitting that roadblock in their first year, sort of in this sort of stretch. And then the second year, the Bucks and Packers both had home field advantage, but it was should have had home field advantage, but it was during the pandemic, and the Bucks were in the bubble and it all fell apart. And the Packers were at Lambeau with basically no fans and it all fell apart. And then the Bucks finally get that home court advantage in the playoffs and they take advantage of it. Number one seed, win the championship. The fans actually there. And I'm hoping that the Packers follow a very similar pattern to our Milwaukee Bucks, and that would be amazing. But I agree with you. I think the fans in the stands is incredibly important because even though they had home field a season ago, they didn't really get the full benefits of that benefit, if you will.
Right. And they're also undefeated at home this year. They're the only team left in the NFL that's undefeated at home this year. So you're riding that high. I think that could be a little fun factor into it. They're doing well.
Yes, they are. And it's a special place to play. There's no two ways about it. 2 more wins at home, 10-0 at home, and you're going to a Super Bowl, which would be incredible. We do have some injury updates, though, because I think those are incredibly important to chat about. Let's start with David Bakhtiari, because this is the one that I am now slightly more concerned over. And I want to hear if you are concerned as well, or if you're buying Matt LaFleur's that this is just load management, because for those listening who had a chance to, see this or listen to Matt LaFleur, Matt LaFleur said that David Bakhtiari wasn't going to practice. And then of course he didn't practice on Tuesday. Matt LaFleur also said not to be, sort of alarmed. It was just load management. I tend to be a bit more concerned, but I'll let you kick things off here. What's your current, DEFCON meter with, David Bakhtiari and his health?
Yeah, to me, I think if we're following LaFleur's narrative, they didn't have an easy or relaxed bye week. It was regular workouts and practice, even if in a condensed time frame. And you have to assume someone that's still, working through that rehab process to be back at full strength, like Bakhtiari, like a bunch of other injured guys are also doing those workouts on top of whatever they can. So I just think that his regimen was going on through the bye week because there isn't any sort of structured rest that comes with rehabbing through a bye week. Like you have to follow your own rehab schedule and try and take the reps at you can. But ultimately, this isn't alarming to me because we just don't know what schedule he was on. And you have to assume he's been on the same consistent workout schedule that's only growing until he's back at full speed. So for me, this isn't ringing any bells. Now, if he weren't to practice another day this week, maybe that's a little concerning.
So the only reason why it's semi-concerning, first of all, in LaFleur's press conference, I thought you could tell the legitimate excitement he had, or at least the energy he had when answering about Z and Jair and Whitney Merciless. And like when he was asked about other injured players, it just seemed like he was, much more enthusiastic about their ability to play and return, where he sort of kind of gave the very cliched at this point, we're hopeful and we're just going to take it a day at a time without, about David Bakhtiari. The other thing is that, he's been on and off practicing since he's, last stepped foot on the field against Detroit. And, he played 27 snaps in that game and then had to get taken out due to fatigue. And to me, if he was really ready, like you would want to ramp him up this week would be my guess. Like you want to give him as many reps as possible to see if he can handle it, to see if he can get closer and closer to maybe being able to play 50, maybe even 60, 70 snaps if needed in that game. The fact that it's Tuesday of a game week on a not a Sunday game week, on a Saturday game week, and he's not practicing at all. Yeah, not practicing at all. And listen, it very well could be load management. It very well, and they could easily be taking the stance of David Bakhtiari doesn't need to practice, even with the immense amount of rust from taking a year off. we trust that if David Bakhtiari is going to be out there at left tackle, we have no concerns about it whatsoever. And we're just going to get through this. And we don't want to put any extra wear and tear on it, which is the load management. And we're just going to get him in on Sunday and let him go. That could be the case. But this raised a little bit of a red flag for me. And I hope I'm wrong. And I hope you're right.
And I think I look at that similarly to the way we need to see Jair Alexander really put the pads on and really practice consistently at full speed to feel like there's assurance and confidence that he's ready to go in at a high game level. And I wonder, I was talking about this earlier today, I wonder if some of these players are in situations like David was, in the Detroit game where, okay, it's definitely a two-way street of communication in terms of fatigue and snaps and stuff. But I wonder if these situations about players going into it, if there's maybe going to be more rotational snap counts, like with Zadarius Smith and David Bakhtiari, where maybe they don't want to burn out all 27 snaps he has available, hopefully more at this point, in the first quarter. Ideally, maybe it's going to be a little more of a situational setup. And I could totally see that coming into play with Zadarius Smith, just like even at the end of the Detroit game, Preston Smith was in on 3rd and long situations. So I can see that for some of the guys that if they are even up to full strength, it might still be a more situational perspective going into this because they want to have them in the game for longer and be able to make late game plays.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so interesting about Bakhtiari, right? Because, Randall Cobb makes sense as a rotational guy. Like, you don't need your slot veteran receiver on every single play, and especially if MVS is healthy, more on that in a second. But, you don't need Cobb out there 70 snaps a game. He can easily rotate in when you have specific packages for Randall Cobb, and they have more than enough receivers to fill in for him. Jair Alexander, right? You can have Douglas and Stokes and even Sullivan play their primary roles and then bring him in obvious passing situations where it's maybe less likely that he's going to have to get involved stopping the run or throwing his shoulder at something. You can obviously pick your poison there as well. Zadarius Smith, Whitney Merciless, same thing. You can allow them to play situational pass rushing or however you want to rotate them in. David Bakhtiari is always a bit different, right? And you usually don't rotate offensive linemen. Now you could just say like, hey, go out there till you can't anymore. And whatever that cutoff is, we're going with Yash and we feel confident with Yash. That could easily be the case. As you mentioned, they could go at, reverse engineer it and say, hey, we know we only got Bakhtiari for 25 snaps. We're going to wait till the fourth quarter and see if we need Bakhtiari. And then, if we're cruising in the fourth, we're maybe not even going to put him in. If all of a sudden we're down in the third quarter by 14, we might, or 10 or whatever, and we need to get back in this game, we might throw him in, start a second half and say, hey, we need to get things going. We're going to let you play as long as you can. There's a variety of different things that they could do. So it's going to be super interesting to see all the sort of load management, not even in practice, but once the games start and how they utilize and really reintegrate all of these players.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, like you say, it's a lot more different to have a rotational situation like that on the O-line than basically any other position group and the packages you're building for that. But, at least having Lucas Patrick back, add some stability to the line as well. Hopefully it'll be interesting to see how any of these guys are used on Saturday against the Niners.
Unquestionably, it's going to be like the story within the story, because it's not like this is like a week 10 like game where you're just like, well, we'll watch what's kind of going on in the game, but it's going to be really intense to see like how these players are like, this is a divisional round of the playoffs. Like we're going to be watching how literally like 6-7 guys are returning from injury and how they're playing, while also this incredibly important playoff game against the 49ers is playing out. It's going to be a lot to watch. And I think it's going to make that level of excitement even that much more intense. We really got good news on just about every other injury, though. MVS is back, Chandon Sullivan's back, Kingsley Kiki's back, Billy Turner's back. And as far as an injury report standpoint, David Bakhtiari was the only Green Bay Packer who did not practice. Jair Alexander and MVS were both limited in some capacity. And then Devondre Campbell, Aaron Jones, Aaron Rodgers, and Billy Turner were all full participants, and nobody else was listed on the injury report at all. That is almost as amazing of a possible scenario as you could possibly get going into a divisional round playoff week. I know there's still guys like Elton Jenkins and things like that out there, but man, oh man, the level of health right now is, you couldn't ask for much more.
It's almost too perfect that things are really clicking at the right time. Everybody's getting healthy just when it's time to win or go home. I'll be interested if this persists throughout the week, if everybody has a really clear bill of health by Saturday, or if they get beat up this weekend. It's going to be interesting to see how sustainable this situation is.
Yeah. And of course, if they make it past San Francisco, there's always injuries that can happen in that game. They also have a variety of roster moves that they need to make because a lot of these guys are coming back off of injured lists, meaning that they're going to have to make a variety of transactions before this week is over. So a lot of roster maneuvering before the week is done. So look for that as the week goes on as well. But it's really incredible to see, just how all of these players are going to get reintegrated. We've been talking about it for a while, and could this guy come back? Could this guy come back? And then all of them at once in the divisional round is just, it's almost overwhelming and almost, too much to almost talk about at once, but it's super exciting at the same token. Switching gears almost entirely, but sticking with the Packers and sort of news and notes from Tuesday, Luke Getsy, Packers quarterback coach, reported that he interviewed with the Carolina Panthers for their offensive coordinator position. Now, we already know that he interviewed for the Broncos head coaching job. Probably, you never know, but probably not one of the leading candidates. There's like 12 guys that interviewed in Denver. Who knows? You never know who could potentially get it, but maybe not one of the leading candidates. You would think if Nathaniel Hackett gets a job that potentially Luke Getsy could very well be in line for an offensive coordinator job, either under Nathaniel Hackett or under Matt LaFleur here in Green Bay, with that opening coming up potentially. But now we know as well that he has the opportunity with Carolina potentially if they would offer him that job. So a lot going on in Luke Getsy's world.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ultimate rule is you're stupid to turn down an interview. I know we've seen it in the NFL before with certain general manager and ownership situations, but ultimately, why would you turn down an interview? Luke Getsy's getting great opportunities to shine and talk about jobs that he's qualified to do. And it's exciting to see a coach earn those opportunities. Again, I would think that given the longevity and the record of success here, that he would, again, either follow Hackett or move up under LaFleur, but why not explore what's out there?
Was that a pun intended? The ultimate rule for interviewing with Matt Rule? Is that pun intended, Rachel Hopmayer?
Sure. If I get brownie points for it, sure.
You get points. No, I think that's right. And I don't think it's ever safe to assume, right? Because Nathaniel Hackett all of a sudden maybe doesn't get a job. And all of a sudden there's no offensive coordinator opening in Green Bay and Nathaniel Hackett's back. Is that likely? Maybe not, but it's certainly within the realm of possibility. Also, maybe Nathaniel Hackett goes and he doesn't want to raid Green Bay's coaching staff as out of courtesy and says, I'm going to find my own guys and I'm not going to raid a bunch of people from Green Bay. In the meantime, Adam Stenavich gets the offensive coordinator job in Green Bay, and now Luke Getsy is still at that quarterback spot. So I don't think, Getsy can take anything for granted and just say, well, something's going to open up and I'm definitely going to be an offensive coordinator under one of my guys that I'm currently working with. That's no sure thing. And to have the opportunity for anyone to move from QB coach to offensive coordinator is a huge deal. I know some people on Twitter were saying, like, why would you want to go to Carolina and Matt Rule? That's a sinking ship. I'm not so sure that that's the case. I think if they get a quarterback at some point that can run Matt Rule's offense the way that he wants, I think you could turn that around pretty quick. And even with Sam Darnold, I'm not saying that Luke Getsy couldn't turn some things around and make an offense better as well. So I don't think it's dumb in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I think it's rather smart for him to interview. And again, certainly wishing the best of luck for him in whatever he decides to do moving forward, unless it's with the Bears or Vikings, then in that case, not allowed.
NFC North just stays absolutely territorial.
It does. That's well, I was talking to a friend about this because, the thing of like, if Hackett gets a job with the Vikings or the Bears, right? Like, it's not so much that I'm like immediately concerned of like, oh no, Nathaniel Hackett's going to, completely turn this around. And it's not like, I don't know, but the biggest thing is like, you can't cheer for him then in that situation, right? Like you can overall like hope for his success and things like that. But like, if he goes,
the same thing though, isn't that the same thing? Like, why can't you just support people in the sports business?
I'm supporting him as a person. And if he can get a head coaching job, whether that be in Minnesota or Chicago, so be it. But my point being is like, if he goes to Denver or Jacksonville, like I can immediately root for him. And like, it's almost like another team that I'm cheering for because it has no direct correlation to the Packers. But if he goes to the Vikings or the Bears, you can't root for his overall success there. Just the way that it is.
All right, whatever. I root for people.
I hope that he does a good job, but not like, listen, if he wants to go 15-2 every year with 2 losses to the Packers, well, the Packers go 17-0, and then he loses to the Packers in the playoffs. I am more than okay with that. That is
Very happy you've built this universe for yourself.
They can absolutely, that is a acceptable outcome if Nathaniel Hackett wants to go to the Vikings or the Bears, but he has to lose twice a year to the Packers and can never beat them in the playoffs or do better than the Packers on the season. Other than that, I hope for his success.
Okay, good. I'm happy
Other
for
than
you.
that,
You're a good-hearted person, Andy.
I'm just here for the other people, Rachel. I'm very unselfish and very empathetic towards everyone else in my life, as long as as long as it's beneficial for me. Let's speak about something that's maybe not so beneficial for me, and that's Deebo Samuel playing against the Green Bay Packers this week. Deebo Samuel is a hell of a football player that I enjoy watching a ton when he's not going against the Packers. What is your formula for stopping Deebo Samuel, if such a thing exists? And what are you watching for out of Deebo Samuel this week?
I'm really curious as to who can provide the stickiest coverage on him, because while I want that opportunity for Stokes, I just don't know if he's that strong to do that. Deebo Samuel is really an incredibly amazing positionless player. Like, the fact that he is so talented, that wide receiver is just such an understatement for who he is and what he does in the backfield, motion. Like, there is just so much talent there. And I thought it was even more fascinating that when asked today if Devontae Adams, is ever inspired to try things like that, at his position, because he sees Deebo do it, he says, no way. It didn't even miss a beat. Was like, that is not my thing. That is not what I do. Like, great for Deebo. And it's just amazing that he's really expanding the definition of a receiver. I mean, I don't think it's fair to call him a wide receiver / running back hybrid. Like, that's just not. He is an incredible, strong talent on the field. And I'm really going to be invested Saturday in how they attack. In week 3, he went 7 for 9. It's just, that's going to be my main focus. I can tell you all, I will be sitting in the press box specifically focusing on Deebo Samuel coverage.
Yeah, so will Joe Barry, slightly over from the press box, but I guess he's on the field, right? But that's what he's going to be focused.
Apart from each other.
Yeah, still, that's what he's going to be focused on as well. You can call him a gadget player. You can call him an athlete. You can call him, he's a star. Like, that's what he is. He's an absolute star. He's unbelievably talented. And I think the questions that Devontae is fair, but like, that's not how Devontae's built. Like, there are very few people built the way that Deebo is, to be the sort of receiver run after the catch guy, but that can also line up in the backfield and take a consistent pounding from that position. There's just, there's very few people like that. He is clearly one of them, and arguably one of the best to sort of play that slash position. I don't think there's a way that you stop him. I don't think there's a player that you can set on him. And the reason I say that is, he's going to be moved all around. So it's not like you can just say like, well, Jair's got him, even if Jair is 1,000,000% healthy, right? Like, you can't just say like, wherever Deebo goes, Jair goes, because Deebo might be in the backfield. It's not like you're going to have Jair line up at linebacker to move across from him, right? So you have to figure out how you want to play that. But I think the biggest thing that you can do if you want to quote unquote stop Deebo, it's not necessarily putting somebody on him. It's having 11 guys rally to the football and tackle well, because Deebo makes his living with run after the catch and with, his explosiveness.
This is Devondre Campbell's time.
Absolutely. And he's going to be a key part of that. But that I'm not so worried about. It's if Darnell Savage is coming to fill in a lane, can he make that tackle? If he's running outside and Eric Stokes has to come up and make that, if Jair with the bum shoulder has to come up and make that tackle on Deebo Samuel. And that's why, to me, it's going to be so incredibly important for all 11 to be rallying to the football, to take good angles, and ultimately to be a firm, decisive tackler, wrapping up and making sure that he doesn't get that extra yardage. Because if Deebo carries and, you're stopping him for, 10 or under gains, like, you can live with that. Like, not every play, you can't allow a 10-yarder every play, but you can still live with those. It's when he starts breaking the 20, 30, 40 yarders where it becomes game breaking and back breaking. And if Green Bay can avoid that because of strong tackling, that to me is how you shut down Deebo Samuel.
And the defense has been good up until Detroit, at collapsing at the same time, at really proactively chasing the ball together. But again, now that you're adding fresh pieces back in, like Za'Darius and like Jair, how are they going to be able to stay as a unit of 11?
I think it's a great point. And I think, again, it just goes back to the whole like return from injury. It's such a unique thing. I don't think we've ever really seen anything like it. I don't think it's necessarily tested, because you have chemistries and you have communications and you have all of this that works together for a period of time. And now
it's got you this far.
Yes, exactly. And now you're integrating a ton of variables, even if those variables are high-end variables that are likely to, split in your favor. There's still variables that you're introducing and you're not exactly sure what's going to happen. And it makes it exciting because I think the hope is those variables that you're introducing are going to make things better for Green Bay. But again, reps and communication and working next to each other and knowing what each other are going to do in specific situations, because you've been doing it for 17 games all year. Now those things are slightly, it's just, you're at a loss for some of those things. So it's all so incredibly unique.
I completely agree. That's been my biggest takeaway all week is the Packers' success this week. We'll talk about keys next, but I think one of the biggest components really hinges on these healthy variables, even if they're high talent players that used to be a huge part of your game, have not been this year, and they have found tremendous success without that. So how do you hold on to the high levels of communication and cohesion that have been demanded while dropping these significant pieces back into the picture? It's an incredible situation.
I can't wait. I can't wait to watch. It's going to be all, and if you can get through this game and win the game, and now they're integrated in, and then you're moving on, I think you can build a lot from that, but it's going to be the interesting one. I do want to talk, you mentioned high-end talent and potentially some of these guys coming back. Can we talk for a second about the top-end talent in this game as a whole? Because you've got MVP Aaron Rodgers, potentially, one of the top left tackles in David Bakhtiari, Jair Alexander, one of the top corners, potentially, Kenny Clark, who in most lists isn't going to be like a top 5 defensive tackle, but to me, he's still a top tier, player at defensive tackle overall. Devontae Adams, arguably best wide receiver in football. I don't even think you need to say arguably.
I was just about to say, skip the arguably. It's best wide receiver
in football. Then you have Deebo Samuel, who, whatever position you want to play him at, he's just a phenomenal player. George Kittle, arguably best tight end, although there's certainly been Mark Andrews and a couple others who have made an argument this year. Travis Kelce always. But
that's remaining for sure.
Exactly. Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Kyle Juszczyk, best fullback in football, Trent Williams, arguably best offensive lineman, Pro Football Focus's best rated overall player this entire year. There is no lack of talent in this game. And that's just like the top end guys. That's not even including guys like an Aaron Jones and Adrian Amos and a variety of other players on both sides of the ball, Eric Armstead, et cetera, who are really good players in their own rights as well. There is a crap ton of talent, and it's going to be a heavyweight fight.
Absolutely. And also, on the Trent Williams note, 100% the best in the league, but it's also like this postseason means so much to all of these high caliber, top talent tier players. Trent Williams just got his first playoff win in his entire NFL career. That is nuts. But when, I'm sure we all know the stories of the adversity he's gone through. It's incredible. And this whole postseason, this whole NFC run to the Super Bowl is really full of incredible adversity and storytelling and awesome moments for every player along the way.
Yeah, I talked about it, I think in my episode yesterday, but I know we didn't get exactly the greatest wild card round in the world, but I feel like it ultimately got us to the best 8 teams remaining.
Absolutely.
And it's going to make for some crazy matchups this week that I'm unequivocally excited for. I did get a chance today. Again, these are hard transitions today. My transition game is not on point today, Rachel. I should have had you host today. But anyway, I did get the chance to ask Matt LaFleur today about the Dallas Cowboys end of game situation. And one of the reasons I wanted to ask him about that is because obviously on the Cowboys play, the players placed the ball and then the ref had to, of course, come in like a wrecking ball and try to touch the ball and then replace the ball. And then by that time, clock is done. And as I was rewatching 49ers Packers from week 3, very similar situation where they hit Devontae down the field and they have to quickly spike the ball. And I'm watching it now with a discerning eye. It's a little bit tough to tell from the TV copy, but it very much looked like they placed the ball themselves very similarly to Dallas. And then at the very end, I know this for sure, I did see this, the referee sprints in, touches, just all he did was touch the ball and sprint out. It was also the opposite ref coming from the other side. So I don't know if there's different logistics there. But the refs were more on top of it in that case. Green Bay, it didn't look like handed the referee the ball in that case either. But in that case, Green Bay was able to get it spiked. And of course, Mason Crosby comes on to kick the game-winning field goal. So I wanted to ask him about that. because it was very interesting. And it seemed like you basically said, yeah, we definitely had some things to take away, even from that Cowboys game, on things we can do differently. And that the best thing ultimately is to always hand the referee the football.
Yeah, I mean, if you know that's the solution, then just do it. Why avoid a situation that's going to help you logistically manage the clock? You even had Jay Sternberger tweeting about it. Like there are so many ways to avoid this variable situation that why not just do the safest thing? There were plenty of situations like that over the weekend, plenty of game management questions. Kyler Murray almost getting the safety. Like, why would you throw the ball away like that? There were a lot of logistical issues with this super wildcard weekend. But ultimately, I think, as coaches, as players, the right thing to do in that moment. Don't get fancy with it, especially when it's win or go home time.
No, for sure. And I think, the thing that I found interesting from his response is it sounded like they've now talked to their guards about making space in that scenario if need be, so that the guards are where to so he can get in and touch the ball and get out quickly. Exactly. So he's not having to push guards away. So the thing I love about this from LaFleur is you can very much tell how astute they are with all of this. And maybe more importantly, how they want to learn from other mistakes. And to me, that's just a lesson on life. If you can learn from somebody else's mistakes rather than having to make them yourself, that's going to set you up for much better success. You can tell just by his response, the time, effort, and energy that they go into making sure that they see all of these situations, and then they're reviewing them and reacting to them and implementing fixes to them based on what's happened in other games. I can guarantee you this is going to be a team that's prepared. If they need to spike the ball at the end to set up Mason Crosby for another game-winning field goal, they're going to be more than prepared to do so.
Exactly. Admitting you're a sponge, learning from others in the league, absorbing what's going on instead of acting like you have your blinders on and all you're focused on is your team and the game in front of you. It is an honest and I think smart, way to approach being a very public figure in the National Football League ultimately. And I think it says a lot about, the young coaches coming up, the brains behind it. I just think it's a smart, admirable thing to do.
I don't think Matt LaFleur, frankly, I think he gets a ton of credit, rightfully so, for his football IQ. I think he gets a ton of credit for, a lot of different things. I don't think he gets enough credit for his emotional IQ and how he handles situations like off the field issues, like we saw, during, some of the riots and stuff that were going on in 2020, how he handles the media, how he handles specific situations like this, how he's not afraid to be wrong, how he's not afraid to let the players run the team at times or make decisions on play calls. I don't think he gets anywhere near enough credit for that. And I think it's a huge reason why his coaching has worked and the players have taken to it, and that he's been as successful as he has over the last 3 seasons.
Absolutely. He deserves the accolades. Matt LaFleur has created an incredible, shoveled his own path, through, whether, he comes from the tree of coaches, but ultimately I think he's doing things in his own way.
He really is. All right, let's get to the most important part of today's show. Rachel Hopmeyer's keys to a Packers victory. This is going to be the last time we're going to talk, at least on Pack-A-Day here, prior to Packers 49ers. So I have to know, what is the key to the Packers pulling out a victory against the 49ers on Saturday Night Football?
I think the Packers pass rush really has to suffocate Garoppolo as quickly and early as possible. I think you have to force your upper hand literally in this situation. The cold, the thumb, the shoulder, there's so many issues that the Packers can and need to take advantage of to eliminate that threat completely. Because if you can destabilize Jimmy Garoppolo in this game, you have control over the rest of it. You know what your offense can do. And a healthy Trent Williams is a really big threat. I even said that, when people ask for my 49ers Cowboys, like that line is very legit, but I think the Packers pass rush really has their job cut out for them here. And I think if they can do that, the win will fall in their lap.
Man, it's a great response. And I think because San Francisco's O-line is as good as they are, and because they have a shutdown guy in Trent Williams on one side, McGlinchey on the other side, no cinch either. Exactly. Yeah. Right. And then Alex Mack at center. I mean, they've got a fantastic offensive line. then it's not going to be easy to get to the quarterback. So, but the more that you can get Jimmy G off his spot and make him feel pressured, he's going to give you the football. He's going to make mistakes. He needs the clean pocket. He needs to not move, and he needs to be able to have vision on where he's going. The moment he gets out of the pocket or plays off rhythm is when he's literally ready to hand you the football. Remember last game, he threw a ball backwards, panicked.
Okay, be nice.
Saying he threw a ball backwards, and the Packers were able to recover in a key moment in that game. And then, this week he had the big interception, which allowed Dallas to have an opportunity to come back. So listen, he's a good quarterback, and there's a reason that, he's consistently finding himself in these situations, because it's not just the rest of his team. Jimmy G has a part to say in that as well. But if you can get him off his spot, you have a much greater opportunity for success. I'll definitely go in mine in more detail later in the week, but
I want your key now.
All right, you can have my key now. I think it has to be disciplined defensively. And what I mean by that is Kyle Shanahan's going to throw the kitchen sink at you. He might throw some Trey Lance. He might throw some Deebo in a variety of different places. You're going to see Juszczyk and Kittle line up just about everywhere. Brandon Ayuk's going to be coming in motion. Marquise Goodwin's going to be doing crazy stuff and getting deep downfield. You are going to see everything. And after Detroit just kind of put some things on tape where, they might be able to take advantage of some things, and Green Bay wasn't quite as disciplined. To me, it's not necessarily any just one pressure, just shutting down the run. It's just staying disciplined and playing within yourself, and the sort of the Bill Belichickian, do your 111th. And if people are doing their jobs and not sort of just getting upfield and when they're taking on blocks, when they're supposed to take on blocks, filling gaps when they're supposed to fill gaps, if they can do all of that, the run defense will take care of itself. The tackling will come naturally. Everyone's rallying to the football, good fundamentals. Deebo is going to have, 5 or 8 yard gains instead of 20, 30 yard gains. All of that in that scenario will come together. If you can hold the 49ers offense down enough, I feel very confident that Green Bay can put up, 28 plus points in this game. And if Green Bay can stay disciplined on defense, have gap integrity, set the edges, do everything they're supposed to do, don't take the bait, they're going to have a ton of opportunities for success, because I don't think Jimmy G in this offense can go up and down the field 80 yards, 4 times for 4 touchdowns. I just don't think they can do that. Or if they do, he's going to throw 2 picks and you're going to be able to get more points out of it because of it. So I just think that that's a really key, key recipe for success in this game.
Absolutely.
All right. Are you happy now? You got my key.
Yeah, I wanted it. It's a fair trade.
This is you as a reporter, just digging deeper and deeper until you get the information.
What I do.
All right. I got one more thing for you. We've got some referee stats. Are you ready for some referee stats?
Bring on the zebras.
All right. So Rick Gosselin tweeted this out. 49ers Packers playoff game draws referee Ron Torbert in this game and an all-star crew. Now Torbert's normal crew finished 14th of the NFL's 17 crews in penalties. So not very many penalties called, which I think is overall a good thing. Yeah. Home teams in his starts went 10-7. All right. And then the Packers are 6-2 all time with Torbert as referee. And the 49ers are 3-5 all time with Torbert as referee. So there are your referee stats for the day.
Is this really a logical link to be making here?
Not at all, but we're still going to go over it nonetheless.
Okay.
Does it have any actual bearing on the game? No. Do I think Torbert's going to favor the Green Bay Packers because they're 6-2 while the 49ers are 3-5? No, I certainly don't. But
that's just crazy.
Who was the referee in the finals that had never officiated a Chris Paul victory game? And that was a huge story all during the NBA finals and stuff. But these things, you never quite know, Rachel. You gotta take in all of the information so that you can make an educated decision at the end of the day on who you're going to pick in this game. And if you don't have, referee stats on Torbert, how can you possibly make an educated decision?
You are absolutely right. I would just like to, for liability's sake, put it out there that this is not correlating data.
Entertainment purposes only.
Entertainment purposes only. Very fascinating. I bless the person who has the time to put that stuff together.
Agreed. I think we can both agree on that. Rachel, final thoughts for today?
Yes. My Saturday pregame plan is I'm going to be reporting and making content from the tailgates around Lambeau. So anybody who's there, I would love for you to wave me down. I'd love to stop by your tailgate. I'm going to be taking photos and videos all for my station's presence, NBC 26, the official Packers station of Green Bay. So I'd really like to get your tailgate on there. I think we could all have a lot of fun. I'm going to try to get to Lambeau around 3:30, and I'm just going to be walking around. I'll be in a big black puffer jacket, I think. Well, yeah, fine. I'll wear the puffer. Or a pink one. Yeah, forget the jacket. You all know what I look like. Just find me, and I want to have fun at your tailgate.
Awesome. That's great advice. If anyone is tailgating, hit up Rachel. I hit up
and then
Rachel
I'll see you in the press box.
Yes, perfect. Can't wait. Oh, it's going to be an epic week. I hope you have a tremendous pregame covering the game with all the fans and doing the tailgate things. Souvenirs. Exactly. Yeah, chug a couple beers before coming to the press box, please.
I'm on the clock, sir.
What does that mean? Anywho, you're amazing as always. Appreciate you. Enjoy your week. We will talk next week, hopefully talking about a Packers victory, and we'll start previewing Packers Bucks or Packers Rams, whatever that may be. Can't speak it quite into existence yet, but we're going to definitely hope it into existence. Rachel, make sure to everyone follow Rachel on Twitter at Rachel Hopmayer, correct?
Yep.
All right. I'm going to stop rambling. That's going to do it for us. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.